At this time, I'd like to introduce the Commissioner of Connecticut Department of Transportation, James Redeker. He is responsible for overseeing the statewide system of highway operations, capital project design, and public transportation. At this time, I'd like to introduce Commissioner, Connecticut Department of Transportation, James Redeker.
Good morning, all, and it is a privilege to welcome you to Connecticut and hope that your stay here is really enjoyable. I'm a transplant to Connecticut, so I know what it means to visit Connecticut, but now I've become a clear advocate and supporter of the great state that we have here. But terrific assets, great places to visit. Hope you get around a little bit. We've got some unique things here in Hartford, and we've got some unique transportation things that come to and from Hartford in CT Fast Track, our unique bus rapid transit system that is one of a kind in the country. It's the only bus rapid transit system that sits and shares the Amtrak high-speed corridor. That is a pretty unique opportunity. And we opened up just last month the new Hartford line, the newest high-speed rail system in the country. So I'm sorry that I'm the transit guy and I'm promoting that, but that's what you get when you come to Connecticut and they hire a commissioner with 30 years from a transit background. Which leads me to this conference where I have no idea what I'm talking about, so I'm not. What I'm going to do is give you an overview of Connecticut and what's going on here to give you a flavor for our state and what might be unique about it and what might be a little bit unique about the people who are the DOT. So I do first want to recognize Jim and his leadership and working on this conference, but for all the Connecticut DOT people, just raise your hands and let me say thank you to you for the terrific team that you are. And for everyone else that's here, you are the best of the best. Public service is indeed a privilege. It's something that has motivated me for my entire career, and the people make the product, and the people make the public service the best. And it's what we do every day, the commitments that you make. And in particular, you know, your field, your expertise is really the heart of what makes a department function. Without what you do, nothing works. So thank you for what you do. So I'm going to spend a little bit giving you an overview So that was 4 minutes, 2 years, $5 billion. Pretty breathtaking. But it is what we've been up to, and we have a really terrific story to tell, so that's why we put it into a video, because I really can't tell the story as well as the video. I want to spend a little bit of time about the DOT and what we do. We have been paving like crazy, and if you're in a state around us, you will not see the conditions we have, even though we still have more to go. And that's just the last couple years. Year after year, we've covered just about the entire state with repaving. Snow and ice, this is my baptism by fire as a commissioner, where I got dragged into a hearing with a circular room with legislators all over the place, and on every desk of about 64 legislators was a rusted truck part. And it's my fault, because whatever I do to the roads is my fault. So we have put together a snow and ice program. It's a best in practice guide, which we're very proud of. You've seen some of the fleet downstairs and in the video. This is it's a relatively small state with a lot of miles that the DOT is responsible for. We have about 11,000 miles that we are plowing at this point and maintaining. We've set up a partnership, as many of you have, with Motorist Assist. And then a different aspect of the DOT is vegetation management. This is a state that's pretty into environmental things. There's pollinator corridors, and we've been serious about that. We were able to deal with a lot of tree cutting and maintenance items. This has been a huge issue in Connecticut. We're one of the most densely treed states in the country, believe it or not, and after 30 years of letting trees grow, we had to catch up. So coming up with a guide to do it consistently across the state is important. I mentioned pollinator corridors. We did a first one a couple of years ago and planted an area, and we actually got a bee on a flower and caught that just for the record. So I just blew over what is the heart and soul of the DOT, which is our operations and maintenance group. And without it, there wouldn't be a DOT, because that's what people count on every day. A lot of what we're going to talk about next is the big projects, and we have lots of big projects across the state. You saw some of them completed. We're about to cut a ribbon on the widening of a section of I-84 in Waterbury, bringing it to 3 lanes. It's a $300 million program that's running almost 2 years ahead of schedule. We've done amazing construction with virtually no impact on traffic. Bob might differ. Bob Card is our financial officer, comes through there every day, but it's been a pretty significant undertaking. We finished this year and cut a ribbon on the last section of I-95, a bridge that was weight restricted for trucks, so freeing up I-95 for commerce. And you saw a bunch of our accelerated bridge projects. We're up to close to 20 projects that have been constructed and more in design to really deliver projects faster, better, without impact to the traveling public. We're using a lot of different, for the first time, new project delivery mechanisms. Connecticut-DOT was prohibited from anything other than design, bid, build. And a couple years ago, we got some authorization to move into design, build, and CMGC and other things, and we've been using them actively. Construction management at risk, we brought in a maintenance facility in our rail yard ahead of schedule and under budget. So these techniques are working for us, but it has been a transformation in terms of how we deliver projects. We're about to go out to, we're fixing them at the largest steel bridges in Connecticut, northbound and southbound Gold Star bridges, also using accelerated bridge. This bridge that in Stamford, so the Northeast Corridor, or what we call the New Haven line, is the busiest rail line in the country. And we've got to replace a bridge in Stamford, where 5 tracks of the Northeast Corridor carry the busiest railroad in the country, and we have to do that without stopping service, and that's going to be an important project. That too will be built on the side of the right-of-way and lifted into place 2 different weekends, and that's going to be a significant undertaking. That is underway now. Route 9, if anybody's driven up Route 9 in Connecticut, it's the only state highway that has lights on it in the middle of it in Middletown. That's crazy. When I got to Connecticut, I said, why are these here? And we're about to initiate a project to finally eliminate those with a very innovative but in-house design. So we're proud of that as well. You saw the walk bridge. This is that 4-track Northeast Corridor bridge. It's a single structure built 120 years ago that has wires overhead. And when the boat comes through, the wires disconnect. The bridge lifts. It turns 180 degrees. It turns 90 degrees. The boat comes by, it comes back and goes down, only it's been doing that for 120 years and it failed a couple times. And that's not good for the Northeast Corridor, because each day is worth about $100 million of economic impact. So we're in a program to replace that. It is the most complex project that I've ever seen. It sits with the railroad operating, again, about 22 hours a day, boats underneath. It's within a few feet of an aquarium building that can't be moved. We're going to take out an IMAX building that's part of the aquarium to stage it and build a new IMAX for the aquarium. It's quite a complex project. And it too, in two 96-hour outages, we're going to try to replace that bridge. And if that doesn't work, I'll be in another country where you won't find me. But I'm really confident in my team. We have lots of big projects that are in our future. We're starting to look at what we call the Mix Master, the interchange of I-84 and 8, just a massive piece of infrastructure that's probably a $10 to $12 billion new construction project. And then the viaduct in Hartford, if you look out the windows here, you'll see I-84. It's a viaduct that has to be replaced. It's about a $5 billion program that not only rebuilds the highway, but moves the Hartford line, which circles down through Hartford slowly and on a single track. It would relocate that to the north side of I-84, build a new train station first, and then sort of rebuild I-84 by lowering the road, covering it over, and reconnecting Hartford that was broken apart in the 60s when we built interstates that way. So the sort of Hartford now and Hartford after, major development opportunities, returning about 35 acres of highway interchanges for new development in Hartford. We're also looking at a new crossing of the river by relocating 84 up and around and reconnecting 91 and 84 to a different location to create a 3-lane through movement instead of 2 lanes in downtown Hartford that really restrict all the movement. And the combination of the viaduct and this project is another $10 billion set of investments that will make a transformative part of Connecticut. This part of Connecticut in Hartford will be seeing construction forever, between now and forever. But when it's done, and we think it could actually be done in a reasonable time frame with enough money, that if you combine these two projects, we've got about 100 acres of really redeveloped parcels that can be really dramatic in terms of what Hartford can become. Rail and transit, you saw some of our trains. Rail ridership has just been growing and growing and growing, and it's not the trend that everybody's seeing around the country. We started the Hartford line this past June. The first weekend was free. Before we opened, Amtrak would carry 400 customers a weekend. We carried 22,000 in 2 days. So people apparently are looking for the rail service. Good success so far. On transit, I won't spend a lot of time, but we're opening this fall. We'll have a new smart card, a one-of-a-kind, capping your fare at the best deal for you based on your frequency. So new technology coming aboard. We've got a very successful PASS program. If anybody that's got a student, send them to Connecticut in college. $20 a semester, you ride any train or any bus in the state of Connecticut as much as you want. And we're seeing hundreds of thousands of student trips doing that. And in some sense, it's actually money that we're making because we never had that many students using transit. And if every student pays $20, that's more money than we ever saw before. So great success there. Fast Track, you saw. This is probably the biggest success story in Connecticut, though some still don't like it. This was a $567 million project. And a lot of people were negative about it. But it has exceeded our 2030 ridership goals, generated $400 million in economic development, so it is clearly working. And we're spending a lot on bicycles and pedestrians. We had a little staff meeting yesterday, and there was a little difference of opinion about how much we should spend on our trail systems. But for the little money we spend, it's really serving an inordinate number of people for fun, for recreation. Some are actually commuting on it. We've done a lot of community safety programs. Connecticut really was way behind in looking at pedestrian safety. All of our resurfacing programs bring an extra lane. We narrow the lanes and put bike lanes in, and 94% of all of our paving projects have been restriped to provide that access for bicycles. And we've connected a lot of trail gaps, major systems in Connecticut. And in September, we will close the last piece of the East Coast Greenway in Connecticut, 0.6 of a mile in my hometown. That will provide the longest contiguous paved portion of the East Coast Greenway between Maine and Florida. So Connecticut will have that to be proud of, at least for a while, till somebody catches up. And a little technology on the highway side. We have our own website and Travel Smart Guide for giving people direct feedback on every trip that you plan for yourself and get alerted about. And that's working great. And it's Bob, you should have had it yesterday for your trip on Route 9. But it's a great alert system. I'm proud of that technology. And a little bit about funding, about how we're funded. The DOT is about a $2 billion a year capital proposition, about $800 million operating budget. Most of our operating budget goes to subsidize trains and buses. 60% of that budget goes to subsidies for trains and buses. So this is a very large transit system proportionately for a very small state. A lot of coverage, a lot of services, and it costs money. About a year ago, the legislature adopted a budget that looked negative every year, and we were proposing serious cuts in services and on the highway side, on the bus side, and we were proposing to eliminate $4.3 billion of capital projects over 5 years. After a year of torture, after those proposals went forward, the legislature adopted a budget that added a new car sales tax that was in a general fund and gave it to us in transportation. They added some additional general obligation bonds, and now we have a budget that's positive. Everything is great. So we took a little bit of a pause in progress, and now we're back on an amazing trajectory in terms of transportation in Connecticut. So our operating budget's about $700 million. They gave us more than we asked for, or was in the original budget. And the capital program, it's $1.6 billion, which is more money than we asked for, and we're in good shape. So thank you for the chance to give you a little bit of an overview of Connecticut. And if anybody has any questions, I'm not going to be staying around, so ask Paul or ask Jim or anybody else. No, seriously, if you have a question or comment, I'll be happy to take it. And I'm hoping to join you a little bit later as well. Thank you. All right, back to you, Jim.
The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.